So I finally hit 10,000 miles on the Can-Am Ryker. It's a 2019 Can-Am Ryker Rally. It needed, you know, a couple little things, and I'll show you what I've done to it in the last month. I did change some things up on it just because I felt like it needed something different. I did try to look into like a turbo, but $3,500 for a turbo, definitely not worth it. But I did do some stuff to it, and I'll show you. I took some of the white off the panels. I added the cold air intake. I did a new CVT belt. I did the spark plugs on it, shock and A-arm covers on it. Those are special order. I'm gonna open up an Etsy account and start selling those on there. Also did the Gearbox oil, which is right here. This is the filler plug, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. The reason I did the belt at 10,000 miles is because CVT maintenance light came on, so I knew it was time for a replacement. About that later. I want to go put some miles on it because I did the CVT on it, and I'm not sure how it's actually working. I just rode it around the block, so I know it moves, but I want to put some miles on it before I talk about the DynoJet belt, spark plugs, and all that stuff. So let's go put some miles on this thing. All right, let's get some gas and then we'll jump on the highway. Always reset the trip after I get gas, and I'll go about between like 110, depending where the next gas station. I feel like at 100 I need to get it, I will, but I usually just reset it, start from 0. Usually around 130 the light gas goes on, and then I'll stop for gas. It's got 10,186 miles, so I guess I got to break this belt in now. So let's put this thing on sport, and we'll take it easy. We'll cruise. Again, I don't baby this thing. This is not like a $100,000 exotic car. This is a toy that's meant for me to open it up and ride it. Aside from like the maintenance that I've done, I wanted to talk about the dealerships, man. I've been trying to buy a two-wheel motorcycle. It's crazy, the fees. And I know I've seen it in the Ryker community, but I was trying to buy two wheels and I just couldn't make the deal happen. I mean, I guess I could have if I chose to pay what they wanted me to pay. I just chose not to. Let's jump on the highway here and see how this thing feels now with a new CVT belt. It's probably, I don't want to push it too much because it's new, but I do want to bring it up at least to like 70, 75, 80. Feels good so far, so we'll cruise it out. Definitely feel the difference. I mean, it's a brand new belt. There's no way I can't feel the difference. So I'm pretty sure if I put a brand new OEM belt on here, it'll probably feel amazing also. I know some of you guys have done like tests on them, so I'm pretty sure that the DynoJet belt is probably a little bit better than the OEM. Plus, I wanted to, you know, really rip this thing. So once I break it in a little bit, I'm gonna continue to ride it the way I like to ride the Ryker. That belt seemed like the better choice for me. The CVT, there's usually no hesitation at all, but I felt it was not as snappy as it usually is. So if you ride your Ryker enough, you'll know your Ryker. You'll know that it needs certain things, and you should do it. It definitely needed spark plugs. At 10,000 miles, if you're close to the 10,000 miles, when you do the CVT belt, definitely throw in the spark plugs. You definitely need it. Try not to like cheap out on it, because you're gonna need them. And I'll talk about the spark plugs later on when I get back home, how hard they were and which brand I went with and stuff like that. So far, is that not having the intake box here, it's letting out more heat than usual. I feel it on my leg. It's January, it's not hot and humid. It's gonna be an issue in the springtime and summer of it getting too hot, not having that cover there. But I guess we'll see. Came down to changing the CVT. CVT was probably a lot easier than doing the brakes on this thing. Hood off first. The front bumper here has 2 screws underneath, and then it just pretty much pulls from here and here, and that whole front bumper comes off. I then came over to the side. I did the push pins on this panel, and I did all the push pins on this panel, and I removed those. Underneath the panels here, you're gonna then have a couple screws that need to come out on this side and the other side. And you have 2 screws underneath the seat here that need to be removed. Panels are off. You're gonna see there's like 2 screws that are exposed here. You leave one on, and then the other one comes off with the bolt. Make sure you don't drop it. Do the same thing on the other side, and at that point you're able to lift the clamshell up. All right, once you get all the screws off, if you happen to have the max mount with the back seat and you try lifting the shell from here, it's not gonna lift. I know that because I attempted it several times and I thought I was doing something wrong. You just come from here and the shell will come right up. It's heavy, so there's no shocks or anything holding that shell up. Lift it and you'll see that it'll start coming up, and you can get a feel of how much it weighs. Also, when you come to the front and you're lifting the shell up, there might be a hose or something that might be like clamping against the frame and the shell coming up, so you can kind of just like move it a little bit to the side. So I had to drop my exhaust. It's an aftermarket exhaust. Not sure if the OEM will be in the way of this shell if you're trying to remove it, but I know that my silver turbo was in the way, so I just pretty much just dropped it and moved it out the way so I can take that cover off. Once I took off all the screws around the cover, I was able to move it out because the exhaust wasn't in the way anymore. There is a piece underneath there, like a metal bracket that has one screw. You need to remove that. Also gave me access to pull that cover out. So when you take the cover off, there's going to be a shield on the top and a shield on the bottom. Just remove those carefully. The one on the top is metal. You might want to wear gloves because I kind of nicked myself a little bit. I just kind of like grabbed in there and I kind of like poked myself a little bit. So maybe wear rubber gloves and put them back on how they go before you put the covers on. Once the belt is exposed, you're going to need this tool. This is going to push the plate in. It's going to loosen the belt for you. Once you loosen the belt up, I lined it up in the bottom first, and then I took the top part of the belt and I just pulled on one side and it came out, and then I just kind of like started rotating it and I got the bottom out. That came out fairly quickly. I then inserted the new DynoJet belt, and before I closed it up, I had the rear jacked up. I started the Ryker up, plate pushed back out, and the belt was set in place. You'll see it on other YouTubers' videos if you research it. Now for the spark plugs, I've seen people do it from here, but I already had the shell open. 3 spark plugs, Baharan. They come pre-gapped, thermal paste, dialect grease for the bottom of the coil. Best bang for your buck. I just went ahead and ordered the kit from Baharan on eBay. You're also going to need a spark plug socket. It's a special socket for the spark plug. Don't try to use a regular socket. There's 3. So this one here is the hardest one. I needed 2 different size extensions in order to like drop it and be able to just hand tighten it a little bit, but it's doable. I had these 2 were fairly easy. This was the little bit trickier one, but it was done all within reason. Now for the air intake box, and it's just pretty much just pulling the hose, cutting a zip tie from the top to take this one out, and then you're coming from the side to take this one out. I had a Can-Am filter in here, so I didn't want to spend another $30–40 on a paper one. So I took that Can-Am filter and I put it into the CVT side. I haven't heard no horror stories about the Can-Am filter hurting it, so instead of buying a new one for $30–40, I just pretty much just put it in there, and that's why I went ahead and I ordered the cold air intake from Silver Turbos. It was $150, so I feel like it's a win. Kind of like I paid like $110 in my brain because I didn't have to buy a filter for the other side, and it gave it a whole different look. Only downside to having this cold air intake versus the box was that a lot of this is exposed. I had wrapped my exhaust to prevent heat, and it's not that hot out here in Florida right now, but I felt a lot more heat coming out from here. Keep that in mind if you're gonna go for this look, that it does expose a little bit more and you are gonna feel a little bit more heat. Gearbox oil, what I did was I rode the Ryker up on ramps. I then jacked up the rear and I put a level on the seat, so like that I had the Ryker leveled, and took this panel off. There's a couple push pins on there and it pretty much just pulls off, and I put an oil pan under. I took the drain plug from underneath and I drained all the oil. Drain plug back on. I then proceeded to take the fill plug, and there's a level plug on this side that you're supposed to take off. If you look in your manual, it kind of shows you where it's at on the bike. I went to the dealer and I bought the recommended oil for it. This is great for warm weather. You don't have to use this one if they don't have it in stock, and it says it in the manual which other ones you can use. I went with this one, they had it in stock, and I am in a warm weather state, and it's recommended for warm weather. It has this nozzle, so it was easy to just pour in there. I didn't have to buy no new attachment, so that was pretty cool. So then I just kind of like put it in there and I started filling, and then the fill plug on this side, once it starts dripping out, you know that you're leveled. At that point, you just wait for the fill plug to stop draining. You put that plug back on and you put this plug on, start your machine, and you're ready to go. If you read it in the manual, it tells you exactly how to do it. I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit. Recommend it after 2 years or 12,000 miles. I just hit 10,000, but the bike is about 4 years old. That's why I went ahead and I did that. I also got the new handlebars, the new shifter, the shock covers, A-arm covers.